This sign was held up at a fraternity house at a party at Texas Tech in 2014. No means yes, and yes means anal. Right? And there was a very offensive sculpture outside on the lawn. And the people attending the party were chanting this, and this banner was being carried around, right, and hung up outside of the party. Right? And there was a lot of people at this party, right? And everyone was kind of like, yeah, chanting along, being okay with this. But that's what's the pyramid that we talked about, right? So the foundation and then the facilitation to it. This is where it starts. It's challenging these things. How is this an okay thing to say right on campus?
Well, it's communicating to the boys also that it's an expectation.
Mm-hmm.
That it's there are certain behaviors and expectation.
Yeah, it's an expected behavior. It's saying you have the right to expect these things, right? Don't worry about the conversation about consent, right? Even if they say no, it means yes, right? And so when we're talking about these unhealthy messages, right, in these spaces, right? So anyone attending this party who would feel scared, right, even being near here, it's an unhealthy message to anyone on that campus who might want to, report or receive some help, right? If this is what's common, if this is what's being chanted, if this is what's being believed. And it's also unhealthy on the other side. Maybe it's not someone that had something happen to them and wants to report, but it's someone hearing this message and someone telling them it's okay to believe this. Right? So if this whole party of this huge group of people is okay chanting this, that inherent message of saying it's okay for everyone to chant this. It's okay for everyone on campus to believe this, because look at all of us, we're having fun, right? We're at a party, we chant this, we believe this. It's almost facilitated, it's giving that permission of, you can believe it too, come on. Right? Look at us, we're saying it, it's a huge sign. Right? So it's unhealthy all around. Right? And going back to what we discussed earlier about it affecting the entire community. Right? So because it affects everyone, we all have that responsibility, right, to challenge these things and to speak up. Right? And that fraternity was closed down, right? They were forced to close. But, that message is out there, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah, so let's get to this one too. So that common phrase, right, of boys will be boys, right, of being able to just pass this behavior along and say, you know what, shrug it off. Oh, well, boys will be boys, right? That common phrase, it's scratched out, and right under it says, boys will be held accountable for their actions. And under that it says, just like girls are, right? So it's saying everybody, right, if you're doing or committing something offensive or saying something offensive, you will be held accountable for it, right? It's not okay anymore to just say, oh, well, that's just the way things are, right? Oh, well, boys will be boys, what can you do? No. It's challenging that and saying, no, we're going to hold you responsible for it, right? We're going to support the victim, but we're going to hold someone accountable for it. We're not just going to let it pass by because that's just the way things are.
But it's so difficult when the people in power are not being held accountable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right?
And
so it's
that alone is a message also.
Yeah. It's saying, if you have certain authority, right, or a certain occupation or anything like that, it's saying we will be okay with it, right? Not so much because we are okay with it, but because who's going to hold them responsible if they have all this power, if they have all this money, if they have all this control, right? And that's where it's rooted from. It's being able to be cognizant of that, right, and challenge that, right? Does anyone have any questions about what we've covered so far? Okay. So this was, we're talking about socialization, right, in rape culture. So how do we create a culture free of violence? We need to be able to have these conversations. That's the first part, right? Being comfortable talking about it, right? And it doesn't mean having to be an expert on it, right? You don't have to work at a crisis center. You don't have to work in law enforcement or be an attorney to be able to have that conversation, right? I want to empower all of you, encourage all of you to take that initiative, to be comfortable with that conversation, right? Even if you're not an expert on all the components of it, it's simply believing the survivor. It's simply creating safe spaces, right? It's coming into these different social circles, workspaces, schools, and being able to say, hey, I want you to be able to be comfortable talking to me about this, right? I want to help you. And if you're comfortable sharing that with me, I want to help you get those services, right? Or even if it's talking about power and control, right? And being a bystander and those different imbalances, right? Those inequalities of authority and just because of your occupation and all that. It's saying, you know what, like, I'm here for you too, right? And I believe you. Start by believing, right? Create conversations within your networks, something that we keep mentioning, right? Continuing that conversation. And fostering healthier environments, right? Those that do not tolerate these behaviors and attitudes that perpetuate sexual violence. So it's constantly challenging those things, right? And not just like the things that happen on the news, right? Or those big headlines that we hear about. It's everyday language. It's everyday unhealthy attitudes, right? So like racist remarks, right? Or saying something sexist, or someone in your social circle saying something degrading, right? Or oppressive or offensive. It's being able to challenge that in those circles too, right? And having that conversation about, hey, you know, I'm not really comfortable with what you said, or hey, you know, that's really problematic. Can we just, and pulling them aside, right? Finding that safe space to be able to talk about that. Say, hey, you know what, can we just talk about what you said? Or like making rape jokes, right? Or all these different microaggressions, right? Because that's where it starts. That's what we need to be able to be bystanders at and have that conversation right there at the root of it. And being able to examine and challenge your own beliefs about rape myths and culture, right? Because how do we make a difference, right? If we are also part of that community, right? We're also part of that language, of those behaviors and those attitudes, is being able to take a moment and reflect, right? And how we talked at the beginning, checking privilege, right? And your own biases and the own things that you believe, and being able to work through those, right? What do those mean in various contexts, right? Talking, right, to people about it and having that conversation and continuing the discussion. Being able to examine them and be comfortable challenging yourself, right? We don't know everything, right? We're not experts on everything. And we all come from different, right, all our examples here, we all come from these different experiences and different reasons and different fields. But be comfortable challenging yourself. Be comfortable telling yourself, you know what, like, I don't know why I believe that, right? I don't know where I heard that. I don't know where that came from, right? So that conversation is also within yourself, being able to challenge yourself and examine that. So the last piece here for our final objective is identifying barriers and the challenges to reporting. These are some statistics in Texas, and this was pulled from a study from UT. 6.3 million adult Texans have experienced some form of sexual assault in their lifetime. 65.2% of victims report multiple victimizations. Moving down to the categorization here by gender and age, 2 in 5 women, Texas women, right, will be victims of sexual assault, and 1 in 5 men were victims of sexual assault in Texas. And this can also be found online, right? So this study can be found online from UT. It was their social work department, I think, that had been putting this together. And so you can find this diagram online and a lot of more infographic on it and more information. But it's just talking again about the prevalence, right? Putting this into the scope of our community, right, of Texas, here and understanding the 2 in 5 women and 1 in 5 men. And talking about the challenges of reporting. Right? So let's take a look at this diagram here. Out of every 100 rapes, 46 get reported to the police, 12 lead to an arrest, 9 get prosecuted, 5 lead to a felony conviction, 3 will spend even a single day, 3 rapists will spend even a single day in prison. So the other 97 will walk free, right? So what do you think are some barriers? Why is it, right? There were 100, and only 3 will spend even a day in prison. What is that discrepancy?
Just what people are reporting, just because it's like, why would something that happen, just be walking around that with me, or, you know, or I should say that person, sorry, which I did. I mean, it would disturb me.
Yeah.
Right, seeing that happen, right, and being aware that, well, why would I even do that, right?
why would I even encourage my daughter to, you know, to do it just because if that was the end of someone.
Yeah, there's such a large discrepancy.